Ma'am, you need to return to your actual seat. This section is for first-class passengers only.
Flight attendant Jennifer Morrison's voice cuts through the cabin of Flight 2847 like a knife. Her perfectly manicured hand gestures dismissively toward the back of the aircraft, her smile frozen in that particular expression service workers reserve for people they believe don't belong. Dr. Elaine Carter sits in Seat 1A, first class, her boarding pass clearly visible on the tray table before her. At 67 years old, she wears her silver locks pulled back in an elegant bun. Her charcoal gray suit is impeccably tailored. A vintage Patek Philippe watch, the kind that costs more than most people's annual salary, rests on her wrist. Her leather briefcase, embossed with initials that gleam in the cabin light, sits in the overhead compartment. But Jennifer doesn't see any of that. She sees a black woman, an elderly black woman. And in Jennifer's mind, that equation doesn't add up to first class. "I'm in my assigned seat," Dr. Carter says calmly, her voice carrying the measured authority of someone who's spent decades in operating rooms making life-and-death decisions. Jennifer's eyes narrow. "I'm going to need to verify your ticket, ma'am. We've had issues with passengers trying to upgrade themselves without authorization." Around them, the cabin fills with the familiar sounds of boarding, rolling luggage, overhead bins slamming shut, conversations overlapping. But in row 1, tension crystallizes like ice forming on wings. Have you ever been made to feel like you don't belong somewhere, even when you have every right to be there? What happens next will expose a system of discrimination that costs one airline everything. Before we continue, if stories of quiet strength overcoming injustice resonate with you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. These real-life accounts of dignity defeating discrimination need to be heard. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. Now, let's see how Dr. Carter's composure in the face of humiliation leads to the most dramatic corporate reckoning in aviation history. Skyrise Airlines Flight 2847, Newark to Atlanta. Departure time, 2:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday afternoon. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner represents the newest addition to Skyrise fleet, state-of-the-art aircraft for a company that prides itself on excellence at altitude. Dr. Elaine Carter hands over her boarding pass without resistance. First class, Seat 1A. Purchased online 48 hours earlier for $1,842. Her name matches her government-issued medical license perfectly, the one that identifies her as Dr. Elaine M. Carter, MD, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery. Jennifer studies the boarding pass like she's searching for counterfeit watermarks that don't exist on airline tickets. She holds it up to the light, examines the barcode, even pulls out her smartphone to photograph it. "And I'll need to see your credit card," Jennifer announces loudly enough for passengers 3 rows back to hear. "The one you used to purchase this ticket. Company policy for high-value transactions." The request is absurd. In 23 years of flying first class, to medical conferences, speaking engagements, emergency consultations at hospitals across the country, no flight attendant has ever asked Dr. Carter to verify her credit card mid-flight. "I wasn't aware that was standard procedure," Dr. Carter replies, her tone professional but pointed. "It's standard when we have concerns about transaction validity," Jennifer says, her voice dripping with implication. Dr. Carter reaches into her purse. Hermes, subtle logo, the kind of understated luxury that whispers rather than shouts. She produces her American Express Centurion card, the black card, the invitation-only credit card that requires over $250,000 in annual spending just to qualify for membership. Jennifer takes it like she's handling evidence in a crime scene. "I'll need to verify this with our financial security team. Please remain seated." She disappears toward the galley, the black card clutched in her hand like proof of something nefarious. The businessman in Seat 1C, middle-aged, white, wearing a polo shirt and khakis, lowers his Wall Street Journal. He's been watching the entire interaction with growing discomfort. "That was completely out of line," he mutters, just loud enough for Dr. Carter to hear. She offers him a slight smile. Unfortunately, it's not unprecedented. What Jennifer and the rest of the flight crew don't know is that Dr. Carter's purse contains more than just a credit card. Tucked in the side pocket is a leather document holder. Inside that holder, quarterly financial statements for Skyrise Airlines' parent company, meeting minutes from the most recent board of directors session, and a benefits summary showing her as the majority shareholder of Atlas Aviation Holdings, the corporation that owns Skyrise Airlines and 4 other major carriers. Her phone buzzes. A text message from her chief financial officer. Board meeting moved to 6 p.m. Need your approval on Q3 capital expenditure allocations. $847 million aviation technology modernization package pending. She types back, currently experiencing interesting customer service research. Data collection ongoing. Another buzz. Her director of operations, FAA compliance audit results ready for your review. Minor concerns regarding crew training protocols and discrimination prevention. Dr. Carter's finger hovers over the screen. She glances toward the galley where Jennifer has disappeared. Then she types, prepare comprehensive audit of current training effectiveness. I'm gathering first-hand evidence of systemic failures. The phone slips back into her purse. Her expression remains perfectly calm, but her mind is cataloging every detail of this interaction for the investigation that will inevitably follow. Jennifer returns 18 minutes later. 18 minutes during which Dr. Carter has been subjected to stares from passing crew members, whispered conversations in the galley, and the unmistakable sensation of being treated like a criminal at 35,000 feet. Your card has been verified, Jennifer says, the disappointment in her voice barely concealed. She sounds genuinely upset that Dr. Carter isn't a fraudster. Excellent, Dr. Carter replies evenly. May I please have my beverage service now? I requested water when you first approached. We'll get to everyone when we can, Jennifer says dismissively, then immediately turns to the white passenger in 1B with a brilliant smile. And what can I get for you, sir? Champagne? Sparkling water? We have a lovely Oregon Pinot Grigio if you prefer wine. The contrast is surgical in its precision. Dr. Carter's request, ignored. The passenger 3 feet away, treated like royalty. The businessman in 1C pulls out his iPhone. He angles it carefully, capturing Dr. Carter's empty tray table contrasted against the champagne flute being placed before his neighbor. He's not even subtle about it. He wants the crew to know they're being documented. A woman in seat 2D, a young professional with thick-rimmed glasses and an iPad open to what looks like a legal brief, starts recording as well. Her screen shows a live streaming app. A small counter in the corner reads, 47 viewers. The meal service begins 90 minutes into the flight. The galley comes alive with the aroma of premium cuisine. Herb-crusted salmon with lemon beurre blanc, grass-fed beef tenderloin with truffled demi-glace, butternut squash ravioli with sage brown butter. The kind of meals that justify first-class ticket prices. A young male flight attendant named Marcus approaches Dr. Carter's row. He places meals before 1B and 1C with practiced efficiency. When he reaches Dr. Carter's seat, he suddenly develops selective blindness. The cart rolls past without stopping. Excuse me, Dr. Carter says, her voice carrying just enough volume to be heard by surrounding passengers. I haven't received my meal selection. Marcus freezes. His eyes dart toward the galley where Jennifer watches like a supervisor overseeing an execution. We're experiencing inventory shortages in certain areas, Marcus stammers. I'll check on availability. Inventory shortages. The businessman in 1C sets down his fork with deliberate force. You just served everyone else in first class. She's literally the only person who hasn't been served. Marcus flees to the galley without responding. The woman live streaming in 2D adjusts her angle. Her viewer count jumps, 312 viewers. Comments scroll past faster than she can read them. This is absolutely insane. Y'all are witnessing discrimination in real time on Skyrise Airlines Flight 2847. This elderly black woman in first class, who clearly belongs here, is being systematically ignored while everyone around her gets full service. The chat explodes. WTF is happening? This is 2024. Are you serious right now? Someone better be getting fired. I'm calling the airline right now. This is going viral. Head flight attendant Michael Chun emerges from the forward galley. He's in his early 40s, with the kind of stern expression that suggests he takes his authority very seriously. He approaches Dr. Carter's seat with the deliberate pace of someone conducting an investigation. Ma'am, we've received reports that you've been disruptive and making demands of our crew. Dr. Carter looks up from the medical journal she's been reading. The Journal of Thoracic and Cardiovascular Surgery, her name listed on the editorial board. I've requested the meal service I paid for. That constitutes disruption. Your tone has made crew members uncomfortable, Michael says, his voice carrying throughout the cabin. We need to ensure the safety and comfort of all passengers. My tone. Dr. Carter repeats the words slowly, letting them hang in the recycled air. I've spoken exactly 3 times, each time to politely request service. Perhaps you could clarify which specific words made your crew uncomfortable? Michael's jaw tightens. Ma'am, if you continue to be difficult, we may need to involve air marshals and have security meet the aircraft upon landing. The threat detonates in the cabin like a concussion grenade. The businessman in 1C stands up. Are you threatening to have her arrested for asking for food she paid for? Sir, please sit down. This doesn't concern you. It concerns every person on this plane who just watched you refuse service to the only black passenger in first class. Other passengers murmur agreement. Phones emerge from pockets and bags like witnesses to a crime scene. The cabin transforms into a documentary film set with multiple angles capturing every word. The live stream hits 1,200 viewers. The algorithm is catching fire. Dr. Carter's phone vibrates with another text. Her general counsel. Dr. Carter, we're seeing social media reports about a Skyrise flight. Is everything all right? She types back, experiencing comprehensive failure in customer service protocols. Document everything. Prepare for emergency board session. Her CFO. Stock price showing unusual activity. Trading volume up 340% in past 20 minutes. Social media mentions spiking. Dr. Carter glances at the crew members hovering near the galley, whispering urgently to each other. They have no idea they're not just dealing with a passenger. They're inadvertently creating the catalyst for the most expensive discrimination lawsuit in aviation history. Marcus returns with a meal tray, but it's not the herb-crusted salmon or grass-fed beef. It's a basic economy class sandwich, turkey on wheat bread with wilted lettuce, a bag of chips, and a bruised apple. The kind of meal that costs $12 in Coach. This is what we have available, Marcus says quietly, unable to meet her eyes. The businessman in 1C slams his palm on his tray table. That is not what the rest of us were served. That's not even close. Jennifer appears from the galley, her professional mask slipping completely. Sir, we ask that you don't interfere with service procedures. This is between us and this passenger. This passenger has a name. The woman in 2D calls out, still live streaming. And what you're doing has a name too. It's called discrimination. The live stream explodes. 2,400 viewers. Comments flood in from verified accounts. At NAACP, someone needs to see this immediately. At Attorney General, this is a federal civil rights violation happening live. At Skyrise Air, your company is done. I'm canceling my flight with them right now. Dr. Carter studies the economy meal on her tray table. She paid $1,842 for first-class service. She's being offered a meal worth $12. The mathematical insult is almost impressive in its blatancy. I'd like to speak with the captain, she says calmly. Michael's expression hardens. The captain is busy flying the aircraft. You can file a complaint after we land. Federal aviation regulations require the pilot in command to be informed of any passenger disputes that could affect flight safety. You've threatened me with air marshals and security. That makes this a safety issue requiring captain notification. Michael blinks. The passenger just quoted FAA regulations with the precision of someone who's memorized them. Who are you? He asks, suspicion finally dawning. Dr. Carter reaches for her briefcase in the overhead compartment. The movement is slow, deliberate, theatrical. Every passenger watches as she opens the custom leather case. Inside, documents are arranged with surgical precision. Corporate letterheads, executive signatures, board resolutions stamped with authentication marks. She selects a single document, heavyweight paper with an embossed header that catches the cabin lighting. Mr. Chun, she says quietly, her voice carrying an authority that cuts through all pretense. Could you read this, please? Michael takes the document. His eyes scan the header. Atlas Aviation Holdings, Board of Directors, Executive Committee. His face begins changing color as he processes what he's reading. Quarterly Performance Review, Skyrise Airlines Division. His hands start trembling. Employee Conduct Evaluation Protocols and Disciplinary Procedures. The document contains detailed procedures for handling discrimination complaints, policies that Michael helped violate systematically for the past 2 hours. At the bottom of the page, a signature line reads in bold lettering, Dr. Elaine M. Carter, MD Chief Executive Officer, Atlas Aviation Holdings Majority Shareholder Board Chair. Michael's face drains completely white. The document slips from his fingers like a confession falling from nerveless hands. Jennifer, who's been watching from the galley, moves closer to see what caused Michael's reaction. When she reads the document, she drops an entire tray of crystal glasses. The crash echoes through first class like shattering bones. Shards scatter across the carpeting in glittering destruction. Marcus stumbles backward into a passenger seat, his professional composure collapsing in real time. The cabin falls completely silent except for the steady hum of jet engines. Dr. Carter calmly retrieves another document from her briefcase, her official Atlas Aviation Holdings identification badge, the one issued exclusively to C-suite executives and board members. Her photo, her title, her signature authority displayed in corporate silver and blue. I'm Dr. Elaine Carter, she says conversationally, as if discussing weather patterns. I own 62% of this airline and serve as chief executive officer of its parent company. I'm also the board chair who approved your employment contracts, your benefit packages, and the zero-tolerance discrimination policies you've spent the last 2 hours violating. The words hit the cabin like explosive decompression. The live stream viewer count explodes. 8,000 viewers and climbing exponentially. Comments move faster than human comprehension. Holy shit, she owns the airline. Plot twist of the century. Those employees are so fired. Best live stream in internet history. I'm crying laughing at their faces. Jennifer's legs give out. She slumps against the galley counter like a marionette with severed strings. Michael stares at the ID badge like it might be an elaborate forgery created specifically to destroy his career. Marcus has gone completely pale, his mouth opening and closing without sound. The businessman in 1C starts laughing. Not cruel laughter, but the kind of amazed laughter that emerges when reality exceeds imagination. Oh my God. Oh my God. The woman live streaming in 2D adjusts her camera with shaking hands. Y'all. The woman they've been discriminating against for 2 hours owns the entire airline. I don't even have words. Her viewer count hits 15,000. Dr. Carter pulls out her phone, opens the Atlas Aviation Executive application, software only C-suite executives can access. With a few practice taps, she navigates to real-time company data. In the past 6 months, she says, her voice clinically calm, Skyrise Airlines has received 284 formal complaints alleging racial bias in service delivery across our route network. My legal department settles these quietly through non-disclosure agreements to avoid negative publicity. Last quarter alone, our discrimination settlements cost shareholders $4.7 million. She scrolls through data that Michael, Jennifer, and Marcus have never seen. Classified information revealing the true scope of the company's bias problems. Our customer satisfaction scores among Black passengers are 28% lower than our overall average. Our retention rate in that demographic has dropped 34% year over year. We're hemorrhaging customers and revenue due to systematic discrimination that employees like you perpetuate. The numbers are financially devastating. A company bleeding money and reputation due to preventable bias incidents. The Federal Department of Transportation opened a formal investigation into our practices 9 weeks ago. Dr. Carter continues, each word precise as a scalpel cut. They're reviewing compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Poor performance ratings could result in federal contract losses worth $340 million annually. Michael finally finds his voice, though it comes out strangled. Dr. Carter. We didn't know. That's precisely the problem, Mr. Chun. Your behavior shouldn't change based on who I am or what I look like. Every passenger deserves dignity and respect regardless of their race, perceived economic status, or position in corporate hierarchies. She stands, her full height impressive despite her years. At 5'10", even in her 60s, Dr. Elaine Carter commands a room, or in this case, an aircraft cabin, with the presence of someone who's spent decades in positions of absolute authority. You have a choice before you, she says, her voice carrying to every passenger in first class. Accept full responsibility, participate in meaningful systemic reform, and help us build better operational systems. Or face the complete legal and professional consequences of federal civil rights violations. Jennifer sinks to the floor completely, her back against the galley counter. Tears stream down her face. "Please," she whispers. "I have student loans. My son's medical bills. I can't lose this job. You should have considered those consequences before you decided I didn't belong in first class based solely on my appearance." Dr. Carter replies, not unkindly, but without mercy. The captain's voice crackles over the intercom. "Flight attendants, please report to the flight deck immediately." Michael, Jennifer, and Marcus exchange desperate glances. Their entire careers, their family's financial security, hang in the balance of the next few minutes. The live stream hits 25,000 viewers. Major news outlets are starting to pick up the story. #SkyRiseShame begins trending nationally. Dr. Carter's phone buzzes with messages from her executive team. Stock price down 9% in 30 minutes. Social media mentions 97% negative. Legal is preparing crisis management protocols. CNN requesting statement. Board members calling emergency session. She looks at the 3 flight attendants, their faces masks of absolute terror, and then at the passengers recording every moment of this corporate reckoning. "You have exactly," she checks her Patek Philippe watch, 12 minutes until we begin landing procedures. "I suggest you use that time to decide whether you want to be part of the solution or become cautionary tales in discrimination lawsuits." Michael stumbles toward the cockpit. Jennifer remains on the floor, sobbing quietly. Marcus grips the galley counter like it's the only thing keeping him upright. The businessman in 1C leans toward Dr. Carter. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed." She offers him a slight smile. The incredible part hasn't happened yet. The live stream audience watches, 28,000 strong, as the most dramatic employment crisis in commercial aviation history unfolds at 35,000 feet above the American South. And in the cockpit, Captain Williams is receiving a call from SkyRise corporate headquarters that will change everything. Captain Richard Williams emerges from the cockpit, his military bearing evident in every step. 28 years with the Air Force before transitioning to commercial aviation. Silver hair, pressed uniform, the kind of commanding presence that usually ends disputes with a single look. But when he sees Dr. Carter standing in the first-class aisle, her executive ID badge still in hand, his composure cracks visibly. "Dr. Carter," he says, his voice tight with the realization that his career just became infinitely more complicated. Corporate headquarters is on the line. They've confirmed your identity and are requesting that I extend the airline's sincerest." "Captain Williams," Dr. Carter interrupts gently but firmly. "I'm not interested in corporate apologies delivered under duress. I'm interested in understanding how 3 trained professionals systematically violated every discrimination protocol we've implemented over the past 5 years." She gestures to the 3 flight attendants. Michael still pale as death, Jennifer sobbing on the galley floor, Marcus frozen in terror. "Your crew threatened me with air marshals for requesting meal service. They fabricated policy violations. They served me economy food while charging me first-class prices. And they did all of this while passengers recorded evidence that's now being viewed by." She glances at the live stream counter on the woman's phone in 2D, 32,000 people and counting. Captain Williams swallows hard. "Ma'am, I take full responsibility as pilot in command. The behavior of this crew reflects failures in my leadership and..." "Does it?" Dr. Carter's question cuts through his rehearsed accountability speech. "Or does it reflect systematic failures in our training programs, our hiring protocols, our company culture that allows bias to flourish unchecked?" She opens her briefcase again, retrieving a tablet. Her fingers move across the screen with practiced efficiency, pulling up dashboards that make the captain's eyes widen. "Let me show you the financial reality of what just occurred." The tablet displays comprehensive analytics, real-time metrics that paint a devastating picture of systematic discrimination across the airline industry. Atlas Aviation Holdings processes 1.2 million passengers monthly across our 5 airline subsidiaries. Our current discrimination incident rate for SkyRise specifically is 3.1 cases per 1,000 black passengers, nearly 5 times the industry average. She swipes to another screen. Each discrimination lawsuit settlement averages $52,000 in direct costs, plus $31,000 in legal fees, plus immeasurable reputational damage. This single incident, recorded and broadcast live, could cost the company between $3.80 and $6.2 million in settlements, depending on how many passengers file claims. Michael stares at numbers that represent his annual salary multiplied by 40. But the real cost is systemic. Dr. Carter continues, her voice clinical, precise. We lose approximately 420 Black customers permanently for every discrimination incident. Their lifetime value averages $9,200 per customer in revenue across connecting flights, hotel partnerships, car rental commissions, and credit card spending. She lets the mathematics sink in. One incident equals $3.9 million in lost revenue over 5 years. We've had 284 reported incidents in 6 months. That's over $1 billion in lost revenue annually due to preventable discrimination. Captain Williams grips the back of a seat. Those numbers represent route cancellations, job losses, potential bankruptcy proceedings. The Federal Aviation Administration and Department of Transportation investigations could result in sanctions ranging from $50,000 to $500,000 per violation under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Today's incident, with video evidence and multiple witnesses, represents clear violations. We're looking at potential sanctions exceeding $2 million for this flight alone. Jennifer's sobbing intensifies. The federal implications of her actions extend far beyond losing a job. Dr. Carter swipes to employee contract databases. Now, let's discuss your employment agreements and the consequences you're facing. Michael's personnel file appears on screen. Mr. Chun, your supervisor-level contract includes Section 4.7, Conduct Unbecoming. The clause specifically mentions discrimination as grounds for immediate termination without severance benefits. Your accumulated pension worth $428,000 could disappear instantly. Michael's knees buckle slightly. 20 years of retirement planning evaporating in 2 hours. Your union agreement with the Flight Attendants Union Local 847 includes similar language. Discrimination violations void job protection clauses and eliminate eligibility for unemployment benefits. She turns to Jennifer, who's pulled herself up to sit on a galley jump seat, mascara streaking her face. Ms. Morrison, your situation is particularly complex. As the primary actor in this incident, you face potential criminal charges under federal hate crime statutes in addition to civil liability. Jennifer's face goes gray. Criminal charges mean permanent records, impossible employment prospects, financial ruin. The passengers recording this incident have legal standing to file Section 1983 civil rights lawsuits seeking punitive damages. Given the viral nature of this video, now approaching 40,000 views, publicity amplifies potential damage awards significantly. The live stream continues growing. Comments flood faster than the platform can process them. Marcus, Dr. Carter addresses the youngest flight attendant, who's been silent throughout. Your probationary employment status offers even less protection. First-year employees can be terminated without cause. A discrimination incident on your record makes you virtually unemployable in aviation. Marcus closes his eyes, his dream of a flight attendant career dissolving before it properly began. The airline industry operates under strict federal oversight, Dr. Carter continues, displaying regulatory frameworks on her tablet. The Department of Transportation requires discrimination incident reporting within 48 hours. Failure to report properly results in automatic investigations, route licensing reviews, and federal contract suspensions. She swipes to another screen showing government contracts. Atlas Aviation Holdings maintains $680 million in government contracts for military personnel transport, federal employee travel, and emergency response logistics. Federal civil rights violations trigger mandatory contract reviews that could suspend or terminate those agreements. The stakes extend far beyond individual careers to corporate survival. Additionally, the FAA requires crew members to maintain good moral character for licensing purposes. Discrimination violations trigger mandatory character reviews that can result in permanent flight certification revocation. Captain Williams understands the implications immediately. His commercial pilot's license, earned through decades of training and experience, could be permanently revoked. Dr. Carter closes the tablet. However, she says, her tone shifting slightly, I'm not interested in destroying lives unnecessarily. I'm interested in systemic change that prevents future incidents. A glimmer of hope enters the desperate expressions before her. Here's my proposal. You can choose immediate resignation with full severance packages intact, plus participation in a comprehensive industry-wide bias prevention program I'm developing. The offer includes financial protection they don't legally deserve but might accept. The alternative is termination for cause, which voids all benefits, creates permanent employment records, triggers federal investigations, and likely results in industry-wide blacklisting. You would also face individual civil rights lawsuits from passengers and potential federal criminal charges. The choice is stark but fair. Ms. Morrison, your path to redemption includes 12 months of intensive bias counseling with Dr. Angela Williams, a clinical psychologist specializing in unconscious prejudice. You'll complete 300 hours of community service with civil rights organizations, and you'll provide public testimony in our discrimination prevention training videos that will be mandatory viewing for every airline employee in our corporation. Jennifer nods frantically through tears. Yes, anything. I'll do anything to make this right. Mr. Chun, your role as supervisor carries additional responsibility. You'll lead our new crew sensitivity training program, working directly with the NAACP, the National Urban League, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to develop industry standard protocols. Transformation of the problem into part of the solution. Captain Williams, your military background makes you ideal for implementing systematic operational changes. You'll oversee the development of passenger dignity protocols across our entire fleet, 847 aircraft across 5 airlines. Leadership accountability channeled into positive reform. Marcus, you're young enough that this doesn't have to define your entire career. You'll participate in a 6-month mentorship program with senior employees who've successfully addressed their own unconscious biases. If you complete the program successfully, you'll be eligible for reinstatement. Dr. Carter pulls out her phone, opens the Atlas Aviation Executive application, and displays pre-filled resignation documents. These documents formalize your voluntary resignations effective immediately upon landing. Your severance packages will be processed within 72 hours. Your new roles in our bias prevention program begin next Monday morning at 8 a.m. She extends the phone to Michael first. The incident will be reported to federal authorities as required by law, but your cooperation and participation in reforms will be noted prominently in all documentation. Michael takes the phone with shaking hands. His electronic signature captures his commitment legally. Jennifer signs next, tears dropping onto the screen. Marcus signs last, his hand trembling so badly he has to attempt the signature 3 times. Captain Williams signs a separate document acknowledging his failure in crew oversight and committing to the protocol development program. Additionally, Dr. Carter announces, her voice carrying throughout the cabin, Atlas Aviation Holdings will issue a public statement within the hour acknowledging this incident, accepting full corporate responsibility, and outlining comprehensive reforms we're implementing industry-wide. She looks at the passengers who've been recording. To everyone who witnessed this incident and documented it, thank you. Your willingness to speak up, to record evidence, to refuse to be silent, that's what creates accountability. I encourage you to share your videos, to tell this story, to demand better from every company you patronize. The businessman in 1C stands. Dr. Carter, what you just did, holding them accountable while still offering redemption, that's real leadership. She nods graciously. Punishment without transformation just creates resentment. Transformation without accountability lacks teeth. Real change requires both. The plane begins its final descent into Atlanta. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our final approach. The captain announces over the intercom, his voice noticeably strained. Please return to your seats and prepare for landing. The timing is perfect. Crisis resolved. Justice served. Reforms initiated, all before touchdown. The live stream reaches 58,000 viewers as the most watched employment resolution in social media history concludes with systemic change instead of simple revenge. 6 months later, The transformation of Atlas Aviation Holdings becomes a case study in corporate accountability done right. Jennifer Morrison stands before 200 airline employees at the Aviation Industry Diversity Conference in Chicago. 6 months ago, she was on the floor of an aircraft galley, her career in ruins. Today, she's a leading voice in bias prevention training. I spent 4 years as a flight attendant believing I wasn't racist because I never used slurs or joined hate groups, she tells the audience, her voice steady despite the difficulty of the topic. But on Flight 2847, I learned that discrimination doesn't require hatred, just assumptions based on appearance. Dr. Carter taught me the difference between intent and impact. Her 12 months of bias counseling with Dr. Angela Williams proved transformative. The woman who once served meals based on skin color now spends her time working with communities she previously stereotyped. Her 300 hours of community service expanded into over 1,000 hours of ongoing volunteer work with the NAACP's youth programs, teaching young people about unconscious bias and the power of self-examination. The most difficult part wasn't losing my job, Jennifer continues. It was facing the truth about who I'd become without realizing it. Dr. Carter could have destroyed my life. Instead, she gave me the tools to rebuild it with purpose. Michael Chin's transformation proves equally profound. His role leading the crew sensitivity training program reaches over 25,000 airline employees across 14 different carriers in the first 6 months. I spent 2 decades in aviation management, he tells a training session at United Airlines headquarters. I thought I was professional, fair, and objective. Flight 2847 showed me I'd been part of a system I didn't even recognize as broken. His new training program, Dignity at Altitude, becomes mandatory for all Atlas Aviation Holdings employees and is adopted voluntarily by competitors after videos of the program go viral. The program includes VR simulations where employees experience discrimination from the passenger perspective, quarterly bias audits using independent assessors, real-time incident reporting through a confidential app, and monthly facilitated discussions about race, class, and assumption. Within 6 months, discrimination complaints across Atlas Aviation properties drop 81%. Customer satisfaction among Black passengers increases by 47%. Overall service ratings reach company record highs. Captain Williams's passenger dignity protocols revolutionize commercial aviation operations. His systematic approach, developed in collaboration with civil rights organizations, federal regulators, and passenger advocacy groups, becomes the global standard. The protocols include mandatory pre-flight crew briefings on unconscious bias, passenger-facing discrimination reporting hotlines, independent observers on randomly selected flights, quarterly dignity audits with public reporting, and swift, transparent responses to all complaints. In the military, we learned that excellent leaders take responsibility for failures and use them to build better systems, Captain Williams explains during a Senate hearing on aviation discrimination. Flight 2847 showed me how unconscious bias undermines the professionalism we pride ourselves on maintaining. These protocols ensure we never forget that lesson. The International Air Transport Association adopts his protocols as recommended best practices for all member airlines, representing 83% of global air traffic. Marcus, the youngest flight attendant, completes his 6-month mentorship program and returns to active duty. But he doesn't just return, he becomes an advocate. I was 23 years old when I participated in discrimination, he tells new flight attendants during their orientation. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I was following what I thought were my supervisor's expectations. That's how systemic bias perpetuates, not through individual hatred, but through organizational culture that normalizes discrimination. His youth makes him particularly effective reaching younger employees who might dismiss older trainers as out of touch. The Federal Department of Transportation's investigation transforms from prosecution to partnership. Instead of penalties, DOT works with Atlas Aviation to develop industry-wide standards that exceed federal compliance requirements. What Dr. Carter accomplished is unprecedented, says DOT Secretary Patricia Reynolds during a press conference. She turned a crisis into a catalyst for systematic improvement across the entire transportation sector. Other industries should study this approach. Atlas Aviation's stock price, which dropped 11% during the live-streamed incident, recovers completely within 90 days. By month 6, the stock trades 23% higher than pre-incident levels as investors recognize the long-term value of proactive bias prevention. The company's transparency and reform commitment attracts customers from competitors with poor discrimination records. Market share among Black travelers increases 34% in 6 months. Dr. Patricia Williams from Columbia Law School develops a comprehensive case study for her civil rights law curriculum. This incident demonstrates how leadership can transform crisis into lasting change, she explains to her students. Dr. Carter's approach balanced accountability with redemption in ways that created systematic improvement rather than just individual punishment. Harvard Business School adds the incident to their executive leadership program under the title Crisis Management through Transformational Justice, the Flight 2847 case study. The case examines how Dr. Carter's measured response achieved better outcomes than traditional punitive approaches, analyzing the financial, legal, and ethical dimensions of her decisions. Within 6 months, the case study is taught at 87 business schools across 12 countries. The bias prevention technology implemented by Atlas Aviation becomes a model for other service industries. Hotels, restaurants, retail chains, and healthcare systems request consultations on implementing similar real-time discrimination monitoring. A documentary film, Dignity at 35,000 Feet, premieres at the Tribeca Film Festival. The 90-minute documentary follows Jennifer, Michael, Marcus, and Captain Williams through their transformation journeys. The film wins the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Documentary and the Critics' Choice Documentary Award for Best Social Issue Documentary. This film shows that accountability doesn't have to mean destruction, writes the New York Times critic. It's a masterclass in transformational justice that should be required viewing for every corporate leader. Dr. Carter establishes the First-Class Dignity Foundation with an initial endowment of $50 million. The foundation provides scholarships for young Black professionals pursuing careers in aviation, hospitality, and transportation. True power isn't about humiliating those who wrong you, Dr. Carter explains during the foundation's inaugural scholarship ceremony, addressing 100 scholarship recipients. It's about using your position to ensure dignity becomes standard practice, not a privilege earned through wealth or status. The foundation awards its first 250 scholarships, funding everything from flight school training to hospitality management degrees to transportation engineering programs. Recipients include aspiring pilots, flight attendants, airline executives, hotel managers, and aviation engineers, diverse representation in industries historically plagued by discrimination. Dr. Carter receives the NAACP's Corporate Leadership Award, the Southern Poverty Law Center's Courage to Change Award, and is named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people. Her acceptance speech at the NAACP Awards emphasizes the philosophy that guided her response to Flight 2847. True justice doesn't just punish bias. It prevents future discrimination by transforming systems and changing hearts. When we choose education over execution, we create lasting change that protects countless future victims. The viral video of Flight 2847, permanently archived on YouTube, receives over 12 million views within a year. It becomes required viewing in business schools, civil rights training programs, corporate diversity initiatives, and airline employee orientations worldwide. Comments on the video consistently praise Dr. Carter's approach. This is what real leadership looks like. Transformation over punishment every time, how to change hearts and systems, justice with wisdom and humanity. Every CEO should study this response. 1 year after Flight 2847, the ripple effects continue expanding. Other industries adopt Atlas Aviation's approach to bias prevention, proving that systematic change scales beyond individual incidents to create cultural transformation. United Airlines implements similar protocols, reporting a 73% decrease in discrimination incidents within 4 months. Marriott International adopts the bias prevention framework for their 8,000 properties worldwide. Starbucks incorporates the training modules into their racial bias education program. Amazon uses the case study for their diversity and inclusion initiatives. The legacy extends beyond corporate America. The proposed Equal Service Protection Act, introduced in Congress, incorporates Atlas Aviation's bias prevention protocols into federal requirements for companies receiving government contracts. Dr. Carter showed us that accountability and redemption aren't mutually exclusive, says Representative Alexandria Johnson during House debate. This legislation ensures that other companies follow her example rather than waiting for their own viral incidents. Universities nationwide integrate Flight 2847 into civil rights curricula, ensuring future business leaders understand the power of measured responses to discrimination. Dr. Elaine Carter sits in her corner office at Atlas Aviation Holdings headquarters in Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer views of the city below. On her desk sits a framed photo from the First Class Dignity Foundation's scholarship ceremony, 100 young faces representing the future she's helping build. Her phone displays a message from Jennifer Morrison. Just completed my 1,000th hour of community service. Thank you for seeing who I could become instead of just who I was. Another message from Michael Chun. Our training program just got adopted by British Airways. Your vision is going global. Captain Williams. Passenger dignity protocols now implemented on 2,400 aircraft across 23 airlines. We're changing the industry. Marcus. Just got promoted to lead flight attendant. Using my position to mentor new hires on bias awareness. You changed my life. Dr. Carter responds to each message personally, then turns to face the camera crew documenting her foundation's first year. People ask me if I regret not firing them immediately, she says. If I wish I'd pursued maximum penalties, destroyed their careers, made an example that would terrify other employees into compliance. She pauses, considering the question carefully. But fear doesn't create lasting change. Fear creates people who hide their biases better, not people who examine and transform them. Jennifer, Michael, Marcus, and Captain Williams aren't just better employees now. They're advocates who've reached hundreds of thousands of people with their testimony. She gestures to the statistics displayed on her computer screen, the 81% reduction in discrimination incidents, the 47% increase in satisfaction among Black passengers, the $1 billion in retained revenue, the 23 airlines adopting their protocols. Punishment might have felt satisfying in the moment, but transformation created systematic change that protects millions of travelers. That's the difference between revenge and justice. The question that opened this story returns. Have you ever been made to feel like you don't belong somewhere, even when you have every right to be there? Dr. Carter's answer demonstrates that how we respond to injustice determines whether we create temporary satisfaction or lasting impact. Every person possesses the power to choose their response to discrimination, she reflects. Whether we're witnessing bias, experiencing it ourselves, or confronting our own prejudices, we can select approaches that heal rather than harm, that educate rather than eliminate. Flight 2847 proved that individual actions create waves of change, extending far beyond single moments of crisis. When power meets prejudice, the choice between punishment and transformation determines whether justice creates lasting impact or temporary satisfaction. Dignity isn't negotiable, Dr. Carter concludes. It's not something people earn through wealth or status or the right skin color. It's something every human being deserves simply by existing. That's the principle worth fighting for. And it's the principle worth building systems to protect. This story isn't just about one flight or one airline. It's about every time someone assumes you don't belong. Every time you witness discrimination and face the choice between silence and speaking up. Every time you recognize your own unconscious biases and decide whether to examine or ignore them. Have you experienced discrimination that made you feel unwelcome in spaces where you had every right to be? Have you witnessed bias and struggled with how to respond? Have you discovered your own prejudices and worked to transform them? Your story matters. Your voice contributes to the systematic change that protects others from similar experiences. Share your encounters with discrimination in the comments below. Whether you've been the victim, the witness, or even the person who realized their own unconscious biases, your experience adds to our collective understanding of how prejudice operates and how it can be prevented. Subscribe to this channel for more accounts of quiet strength overcoming systematic bias. Hit the notification bell to never miss stories that prove dignity and intelligence defeat prejudice every time, creating lasting change rather than temporary victories. Together, We're building a community of changemakers who understand that justice works best when it transforms systems instead of just punishing individuals. Every comment, every share, every conversation helps create a world where dignity becomes standard practice for everyone, regardless of race, age, or assumed status. Your story could be the catalyst for someone else's transformation. Share it, and let's continue changing hearts and systems, one story at a time. Because real change doesn't happen through fear. It happens through people like Dr. Carter, who choose wisdom over wrath, transformation over destruction, and systematic reform over temporary revenge. That's how we build a world where no one ever has to prove they belong in spaces they have every right to occupy. Subscribe, share, speak up, change the system.